Chiefs and Colts are both under pressure as they head into this monumental game on Sunday. Today on Locked On Chiefs and Locked On Colts, your crossover edition.
You are Locked On NFL Crossover, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
And welcome back to another episode of Locked On Chiefs, and this is a crossover episode with Locked On Colts. Lot to talk about today. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are now the #1 podcast network in the U.S. Thank you all for that. Because of you everydayers, we really do appreciate that. And got a special show for you today. Ryan and I are going to be joined by Jake Arthur from Locked On Colts, and we've actually been working with Jake for over a dozen years now, probably. We were talking before the show started how long we've been doing this. It has been quite a while. Today's crossover episode, Thursday episode, is presented by Prize Picks. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONNFL to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Thank you all for listening. We really do appreciate that. And again, thank you all to the everydayers. I'm Chris Clark from Chiefs Corner. This is Jake Arthur from Locked On Colts, and I'm sure he can tell you a couple other places that he is. And then Ryan Tracy from NFL 33 and Rogue Analytics, as well as RGR Football. Time to get into it. We're going to talk about the keys to win much later in the show. We're going to talk about sauce on rice a little bit in the second segment. But we're going to talk about pressure, and both teams are going to be facing a lot of it in this game, but in different ways. Jake, how are you doing, buddy? It's nice to see you.
I'm awesome. It's good to see you guys. It's been quite a while.
Yeah, it has.
It's a plus, though, when we get back together and cut it up a little bit, shall we say. And we have some good things to talk about today. It's kind of nice.
Exactly. Last time the Colts and Chiefs played, I mean, the Colts won, but it was the most disastrous season I can ever recall in 2022. So good to be back with you guys in much better terms for the team.
So headed into this game, the Colts have pressure, but it's facing pressure from the top of the league, from the top of the AFC. A little bit different than the Chiefs situation, but I'll let you talk about the Colts pressure that they're dealing with right now, Jake.
Yeah, so kind of unexpectedly, the Colts have found themselves atop the AFC standings throughout most of the season. Now with their bye week, the Patriots and Broncos both caught up to them, and they're 9-2 as the Colts are 8-2. But still, the Colts have performed quite well early in the season as the Hunters and throughout the season as the Hunted. It really seems like they're getting a lot of teams' best efforts. Like you go back a few weeks to the Steelers, and their defense everyone was like, this is like the worst Steelers defense we've seen in years. And they totally flip a switch. Suddenly they can tackle again. Their pass rush is awesome. Like everything that had been plaguing them all season totally flipped, and they really just hit the Colts in the mouth. And then the Falcons a couple weeks ago out in Berlin, I mean, you never know what Falcons team you're getting, but they definitely gave them their best shot, ultimately in a Colts overtime win. So for the Colts, they're very coach speaky, led by Shane Steichen. It can fall on deaf ears to the outside, because Shane Steichen is very, we look at this day by day, week by week, but he's been consistent as ever in his third year now. And they finally got a good group in the locker room and in the coaching staff and everything, to where everyone's kind of marching in one direction. And they've really bought into his mantra of, we're taking things one day at a time. We're not looking ahead whatsoever. And, his consistency has just kind of helped them on all sides of the ball keep their eyes on the ultimate prize. And they don't get too high, don't get too low. And, I think us from the outside kind of pump things up for them more than they ever really look at it this way. Like, especially a matchup like this with the Chiefs. I mean, obviously, they're right there at like 500, but only people who you would probably qualify as haters are really downsizing the Chiefs right now. Like, I can promise you the Colts still very much see this as the Super Bowl dynasty Chiefs. They're not looking at this as a lowly Chiefs team that's on a down year.
Well, that's smart, especially if you're taking on the coach's mentality about that keeps you frosty. It keeps you from giving yourselves a letdown. And for the Chiefs, the opposite is true too. They got to make sure that they still believe they're the dynastic version of this team, because at this point, they've been too reluctant to do anything outside of what they've done in the past, which is mostly keep it together good enough so that Patrick Mahomes can do his thing, right? And even Patrick today would tell you, part of the problem is I'm just not hitting my targets. I am missing passes to guys that are open, and that's part of the problem. And so for the Colts to take that attitude, just take it 1 week at a time, Chiefs need to do that as well. And I hope that they're able to get back to it. This has been, you can read the frustration on most of the players about the way that they go about things, not necessarily in person, but certainly leaving the field, that kind of thing. Social media, all of a sudden, you don't hear a whole lot from most Chiefs most of the year, but now things are starting to come along. The pressure is building. And I think that pressure right now is mostly inopportune because of the season that the Colts have had. Now they're feeling the pressure that they put themselves in, where normally we'd be in a position that, hey, this could be a great battle. And if they lost to the Colts, it would still be all right. But now this could be something that really puts them on the edge of even making a playoff run. And that's, I think, what's really adding to the constant downheaval of pressure.
Yeah, I mean, when it comes to the Colts, I mean, they're kind of in uncharted territory a little bit. Like, you obviously want to go for the top seed. You get, the first round bye, you get home field advantage and everything, which they played much, much better at home. They're undefeated at home and everything. But if you're the Chiefs, yeah, it seems crazy to say, but like this, it feels like it could be a knockout punch. If they lose this game, I don't know what the rest of their schedule looks like, but they're in the AFC West. It's probably not a cakewalk by any means. So yeah, for the Colts, you want to get back to the top and stay in the race with like a Patriots team that, like, don't get me wrong, the Colts schedule has been fluff through the first portion of the season, and they're making each opponent look exactly how they should, but they now have the second most difficult schedule in this back seven here. So, I mean, compared to the Patriots, like, it's going to be a race to the finish. And I mean, the Broncos too. The Colts have a win over the Broncos, but if they want to get that top seed, it's not going to be easy.
Game with the Colts and the Broncos early on in the season, and now you're in a situation where you hold the tiebreaker against them, but you're right, you have a tougher schedule than maybe the Broncos have. But it's kind of interesting because you look at how this season has played out for Kansas City, you look at how the season's played out for the Colts. Generally speaking, if you were to tell me early on in the season that you're going to be having an 8-2 team versus a 5-5 team, or a team with 2 losses versus a 5-5 team, I think you'd probably flip the teams. Yeah. That obviously hasn't been the way that this has worked out, and that is okay. Kansas City is under a ton of pressure to try to make the playoffs at this point, and a loss against the Colts puts them with 6 losses. I don't know that they can get to 7 and feel like they can actually make the playoffs. So that is a huge thing that they would have to overcome. But not only that, you're looking at another loss to an AFC team, which is going to hurt you when you're looking at seeding and looking at making the playoffs, because you're probably on the outside looking in at winning the AFC West this year. So it's all about what your common record is and what your AFC record is going to be. So this is a tough game. Kansas City has to go in. They have to try to win this one, and they have to get going in the right direction. When we get back, we're going to talk about Sauce on Rice and the Chiefs' offensive line and how it could really play a big factor going up against this Colts team coming up next.
This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks. You and I make decisions every day, but on Prize Picks, being right gets you paid. Don't miss any of the excitement this sports season, whether you're following the NFL, the NBA, or both. There's no better time to jump into the action. If you haven't tried it yet, Prize Picks is the simplest way to play out there. Just pick more or less on at least 2 players and their stats, what you think, get them right, and you win. It takes less than 60 seconds to make your lineup. You can play anywhere Prize Pick operates, including California, Texas, and Georgia. It keeps every game exciting, and you can get it all during both football and NBA tip-offs and get right there with that stacks feature. It's a new game changer, and it gives you threes, points, touchdowns, etc. Download the Prize Picks app today and use the code LOCKEDONNFL. You're going to get $50 in lineups after you pay for your first $5 lineup. That code again is LOCKEDONNFL for $50 in lineups after your first $5 lineup at Prize Picks. It's good to be right.
And welcome back to the crossover episode. This is going to be a lot of fun to talk about. We get to talk about some of the matchups that are going to be a huge key in this game. Jake, I'll let you kick it off.
Yeah, so the Colts should hopefully, fingers crossed, have their shiny new cornerback tandem. Everyone knows they traded for Sauce Gardner, but Mooney Ward, who you guys are obviously very familiar with, he's been on IR for the last 5 weeks, 4 games, since having that freak pregame accident against the Cardinals, where he and a teammate collided during pregame warmups, and it was actually his second concussion in the first 6 weeks of the year. So they're like, this guy's critical to what we're doing. We're shutting him down to get it, totally healthy before he comes back. So they opened up his practice window today. He practiced in full. Again, he didn't go on IR because of the severity of this concussion. It was because he had 2 of them in those first 6 weeks. So it's been a while. Him practicing full today, it leads us to be very optimistic that both he and Sauce will be available this Sunday. It's kind of pick your poison when it comes to the Colts defense and Lou Anarumo. They wanted to play a significant amount of man defense and man coverage coming into the season, and they had just so many injuries to cornerback throughout the early portion of the year that it just really took away what they wanted to do. I mean, Justin Wally was a guy who they drafted him in the 3rd round, and it looked like he was going to wind up being a starter, and then he tore his ACL over the summer. They brought in Xavier Howard to replace that, and it turned out Xavier Howard, being like 32 years old and a year removed from football, was not a good thing. He retired. And then, Mooney goes on IR. So they just had a lot of problems that hopefully with this back half of the schedule will be all resolved. They've got 2 really high-end cover corners. And when you look at like the Chiefs offense, you see what Rashee Rice is capable of. You really would like to have those guys at your disposal. So you got a guy like Sauce Gardner, who looked pretty decent in his debut with the Colts a couple weeks ago before their bye week last week. And I just got to think, with like a Chiefs offense that's very pass-based, what are they going to want to do? Because Patrick Mahomes has not been quite as effective against heavy man coverage as he has zone this year. And you got 2, again, high-end cover corners on either side. So it's like, what are you going to do there? Or is this one where they just funnel it to Travis Kelce on the inside throughout the game? I'm very interested to see how they go about this. And for the last 2-3 weeks, everyone kind of over here in Colts land has been very, very eager to see Sauce and Ward kind of team up, especially for matchups like this. Like, Rashee Rice may not be like Jamar Chase, but we've seen, like, in his debut this year, he could take over a game and dominate.
He certainly can. And honestly, if you ask most of the players, most of the receivers in particular, they're on this roster, they have no recollection of Charvarius Ward ever playing for this team. So there's no connection there, right? They're just walking into them being a duo. And for one, I like spice, right? So I'm looking for it. If you're from Kansas City, I'm going to get Gates spicy sauce to put on this. If you're in Indianapolis, maybe you're going down Elmo's. I don't know. But you're pulling something with some heat, right? Because this is where the heat's going to be on the Rice Sauce matchup. I think the rest of them is really going to be about how can you take advantage of a guy just coming off of IR, but more importantly, how can you scheme around the 3rd option? Because Kenny Moore is not practicing either, correct?
And he's rested. He has a rest every Wednesday. Yeah, so he's fine.
Okay, so that's normal. Okay, my fault. I will say this, though. I think it's playing off of that matchup with Rice and Sauce. And if you don't get, especially when you travel, Rashee, which I expect them to do quite a bit, if you're going to give some zone looks, or you're not going to let Sauce take that on, where he does have a physical disadvantage, because Rice is more powerful than people give him credit for. So if you're going to map and try to go across formations and keep up with them, I think that's a recipe that they'll play off of, maybe not being the main dish, but the side dish that they're looking for. Got enough food analogies?
I'm not. I mean, now you're making me incredibly hungry, but no, it's I'm very, very curious to see what the Colts are going to do here, because Lou Anarumo will get weird with it. He'll week to week, he'll throw you something new that you haven't seen yet. Like against the Steelers, Jalen Jones is one of their bigger corners who had started for them on the outside the previous 2 years, but wasn't necessarily like the best fit among all the guys they have now. But he was on IR as well. came back against the Steelers a few weeks ago, and right off of IR, they planted him on DK Metcalf, and I think he shot him down to like less than 10 yards receiving. But then you look at the Falcons in their most recent game, he only played a few snaps, but he was kind of like the Kyle Pitts coverage man. So I'm very curious what they do. Like, is Jalen Jones going to be on Travis Kelce? And then they go with like Mooney, Ward, and Sauce and Jones as three really big, long cover corners, and kind of lump Travis Kelce into that. Coverage wise, I want to see what they do with the safeties, because obviously Kansas City has plenty of speed downfield. You look at Brown, you look at Worthy and Thornton as well. So, I mean, I don't want to discount anyone's run game, but I almost don't care, because like this is a lot of fireworks.
Neither does Andy.
A lot of spice, like you just said. Like, I want to see everything about this Colts secondary against these Kansas City pass catchers.
Yeah, and it makes a lot of sense. I mean, this is going to be a marquee matchup. You're looking at one of the best players that the Chiefs have in Rashee Rice, and you mentioned Travis Kelce as well as one of the pass catchers, and then going up against Sauce Gardner, who is one of the best young corners in the NFL. So it makes a ton of sense. This is a huge matchup to see how this game is going to play out. For me, when I look at this, it's a question of right now as we're recording this, Kingsley Suamataia missed practice on Wednesday. We do not know if he's going to be available for the game on Sunday. It's possible he could be available. It's possible he could go limited on Friday and maybe play. We'll see. But that's a huge loss for Kansas City if I'm looking at this, because what we've seen from Patrick Mahomes is he is sped up at times, and when he gets under pressure, he has been even worse than he hasn't been great this season consistently, but when he goes against pressure, and Lou Anarumo has got him under pressure with his time at the Bengals a ton. They played a lot of games against each other. This is going to be something that I think is going to be a huge key. Yes, you get Josh Simmons back. He had a good game against Denver. The rest of the offensive line didn't. And if they don't have a good game against the Colts, the pass catching versus the corners is going to matter. But Patrick Mahomes is going to be under pressure and could be throwing some picks because he doesn't see where the pressure is coming from, depending on what Lou Anarumo does.
And I think that'll be part of the plan, because, again, with how much man coverage you're going to be playing now, you're going to be blitzing more often. They love to use Zaire Franklin coming off those blitzes. They have him stunt and twist a lot. They throw a lot of DB blitzes out there. They've gotten sacks out of Nick Cross, Kenny Moore, Mike Hilton, Cam Bynum had a strip sack. And that's the thing. When those DBs get home coming off the edge, they usually force a fumble on the quarterback coming from the blind side. So I expect to see a ton of pressure coming, because, I mean, this is what Lou wanted. He wanted to be able to get a corner. I don't think he anticipated having two guys like this, but a corner out there where he doesn't have to worry about what's going on that side of the field. So he could just scheme up pressures and make the quarterback have to wait, an extra half a second or whatever. And now the defensive line is getting home a little more. And like Latu, he doesn't have a ton of sacks this year, but he has a ton of pressures. And now when you've got this effectiveness in man coverage, it allows those defensive linemen the teensy bit of extra time they need to actually get home to the quarterback. So with his history, I do expect Lou to bring quite a bit of pressure on Mahomes.
And he's got a way to get to Mahomes, just mentally, back and forth.
Yeah.
So, I expect that there's going to be a bunch of pressure. I'm going to be very curious as to see how well Mahomes is able to verify, or not necessarily verify, but know that the pressure is coming ahead of time, because he missed that a couple of times against the Broncos, and it really hurt this team. When we get back, we're going to talk about the keys for victory for both the Colts and the Chiefs right after this.
The NBA is back. And there's no better place to get in the action than FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. Even if you missed the start of the game and you just want to ride the hot hand, FanDuel has live bets that happen during the game. Everything for everyone who will score from the next point to the fourth quarter comeback. Plus, you can even combine them all into a same game parlay, take an even bigger shot at a payout. Keeps everything exciting. It keeps it up to the minute, especially when your team's making that late push. So right now, FanDuel is giving new customers $300 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. So go ahead to FanDuel.com and sign up over at FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA.
All right, here's the fun part of this show. We get into the keys to the victory for both teams. Ryan, I'm going to start with you on this one. What do you think the keys are for the Chiefs to win this game?
The number one thing the Chiefs have to do is keep their minds about them. And it's not the guys on the field. This is up to the coaching staff. The number one thing they have to do is come out prepared. Can't let younger guys, and there are a number of them that are contributing to this roster right now, can't let them be panicked. You can let the older guys start to get a little bit nervous, right? You have to stay focused. Much like we were talking about earlier about the way that the Colts are approaching this, you have to do that as well. You have one opponent left for this season. It is the Colts. Nothing else matters. You got to come out and you got to be surgical with your offense. And you have to make sure that you're physical on defense, the two things that have not been working out very well for these Chiefs the last few weeks, really, since they faced Buffalo. So for me, it's about the preparation by the coaching staff and the game planning that they have a way out if what they want to do doesn't work. If maybe it is Jalen that does something to mess up the process. If Sauce is just too much all over somebody that you can't effectively do what your main goal is, you have to be able to pivot. And that has to include the run game. That's about the planning. The Chiefs have gotten away from the run far too much this season, more so than even most seasons. And I think that is all in the preparation. Today, as we're speaking, tomorrow, Friday, I think it's more about those days than it is necessarily about execution on Sunday.
When it comes to the Colts, like 8-2, they're obviously having a very good season. And I don't want to discredit anything that any other teams have done, but the common denominator in their losses, they've really only had one ugly performance in all of their losses and everything, but it's turnovers. They've had a big problem with allowing sacks the last couple games as well. 12 sacks between the Steelers and the Falcons. A lot. And then like Daniel Jones had like 7 turnovers by himself in those 2 games as well. So it's not realistic, especially with I know Kansas City's defense isn't really what you guys want it to be right now, but I don't want to discredit Steve Spagnuolo, you know, like he'll have something ready, I'm sure. And I mean, that's on tape for the Colts. Like you're bringing a ton of pressure at Daniel Jones. He's giving you the ball. Like that's out there. And they just had their bye week, but there's not going to be any quick magic fix for that. So I think it's more about how you counter the pressure that pretty much every defense is going to bring at you now, because they've seen that that's the way you beat the Colts, is cause them to cough the ball up. And I mean, like Pittsburgh, for example, like I mentioned earlier, their defense just magically flipped a switch, but the Colts allowed them, 24 of the Steelers' 27 points were off turnovers. The defense shut the offense down. So like the turnovers were a direct result or a direct, that's why they lost. And then really just kind of dumb penalties as well. That's just been the common denominator, like coughing the ball up like crazy, because it's not like they just turn it over once or twice. It's like an insane amount. It's like at minimum 3 turnovers if they're going to have a bad day. It's raining. And then again, like you look at the Rams, they coughed it up a few times. A.D. Mitchell had a game that got him in the doghouse and then ultimately traded. Like if they stay out of their own way, like mistakes are going to happen. That's fine. It happens in every game. You're even going to maybe turn the ball over in a lot of games, take some sacks. But like you just can't let it roll into an entire systemic thing throughout the entire game, like bounce back from it. And I thought that's something that Daniel Jones did well. Like he had a couple more turnovers against the Falcons, but when it came down to crunch time in the fourth quarter and overtime, he made some elite throws. And like Jonathan Taylor went absolutely bonkers, over almost 300 yards of offense. Of course, it feels crazy that I'm only just now mentioning his name. But like, he's a given. Like he's going to do what he does every week. It's about everything else around him not crumbling and, doing their part that leads to the Colts victory. So yeah, as long as, when pressure does get to Jones, he holds on to the ball and he's not having some arm punts and stuff, like they'll be fine. Just be a little disciplined, because being on the road hasn't been their safe space this year, obviously. And then just not letting things snowball into catastrophe, basically.
I chuckled as you were talking because you talked about dumb penalties, and I'm sitting here looking at the Chiefs going, I don't know how else to really talk about it. Like it's dumb penalties. It's special teams miscues. It's not lining up on the line of scrimmage. It's, and I'm okay with a hold here every now and then. I mean, you're gonna have those. It happens. I mean, you could probably call holding on just about every single play. So it's just a matter of what ref you get and what they see. So I'm not going to be upset about that type of stuff, but it's the dumb stuff. It's the illegal procedures. It's the offsides. It's all those kinds of dumb things that the Chiefs have done. If they can get away from that and play a clean game, their chances of winning this game go way up. And you talk about forcing Daniel Jones into turnovers. This defense hasn't been doing that. They haven't been forcing turnovers this year. So if they can get to a point where they're pressuring him and he starts turning the ball over, then you get yourself in a situation where the Chiefs have a short field, and I feel like you have to feel pretty good about Patrick Mahomes being able to put points on the board, even going against Lou Anarumo in this defense. So to me, it's a matter of taking care of the ball, and Mahomes has done pretty well this past week, withstanding it with two horrible throws, one that turned into an actual pick. But he's done pretty well this season, keeping control of the ball and not turning it over. So as long as Kansas City can do that, I think that they're going to be in good shape. But the other one is, this Colts offense, they've been scoring a ton of points. And as you said, Jonathan Taylor has been a big reason why. It's a question of, can you keep him under 120 or 130 yards? Because if you can do that, and I'm okay even if he gets closer to 150, but if you get him, if he goes off for more than that, you're going to be in a situation where their Colts are likely going to hold on to the ball. Maybe I wouldn't say quite 2-1, but it's 35, 40 minutes, and you're losing the time of possession, and that's going to cost Kansas City because they're not a quick strike unit right now. They just can't score points quickly and get themselves to a victory in this one. And so I think, keep control of the ball, no more dumb penalties, and slow Jonathan Taylor down just a little bit, and I think Kansas City has a chance to win this one.
I think one more interesting area to look at is, you mentioned Kingsley's his concussion and everything. The Colts are obviously without DeForest Buckner right now. He's on IR with a neck injury. They hope he gets back, before the season's up, but he's without a doubt out of this game. It wasn't the end of the world. Like, there were times where you could clearly tell he was missed against Atlanta. It's the only game they play without him so far. But this one, if any team can get to establish the run and commit to it throughout a game, especially now without DeForest Buckner, that might be the key to it all. And it sounds like that is way easier said than done for you guys, and it's not even really being attempted. So
Matt Nagy, are you listening?
Right. I almost, it feels like a thing where this is the week where the Chiefs are like, we've been saving it for this. And again, their back's against the wall. But with their backs against the wall like this, like, do they really want to go conservative and go with a run approach? Probably not. But that's something I'm looking for with the Chiefs. Like, do either of these Tigers on either side with the Colts or Chiefs change their stripes? With the Chiefs, again, their backs up against the wall, but the Colts are coming out of a bye. They've had some really ugly performances. They split the last two games 1-1, but both performances left a lot to be desired. So if either of these teams really make any big changes going into this game,
it feels like overall this could be a season swing for both teams on the outcome of this. Either solidify yourself if you're the Colts up at the top, then you got to start asking questions, right? For the Chiefs, one side of the coin is that, oh, yeah, we can still pull this off against a top competition, or, oh, maybe we really aren't prepared to go to the postseason. Like, it seems both teams are going to get some answers when this one's over.
That is going to be it for us today. Thank you all for listening. I cannot wait for this game. It's going to be a good one on Sunday. Be sure to check out Locked On Colts and Jake covering this team, getting you ready for the actual preview game show on Friday. And Ryan and I will have you covered as well. Thank you all for listening today, and we will talk to you next time.